or you're meeting with some friends, let's say friends, that might be more universal to individuals. So you're meeting with some friends, and one of the friends that you're with who kind of has a tendency to carry a lot of layers and be negative sometimes says something to you. And they say something offensive, and you don't bring it up there, but it kind of something that you hold on to. You hold on to that conditioning, that activity that they said. You attach yourself with whatever their comments that they share with you. Then you leave that meeting and you go home and you're meeting your family, and you're already holding on to that feeling, not consciously, but even subconsciously, it's there, that negativity. And somebody says something to you that could just be the most basic comment. Your sibling, your parents, your spouse could say something to you like, "Oh, why did you do that?" or "Why did this happen?" And that little comment could set you off. And it could be something that just brings anger or frustration in your life, because you're not upset with what that person said then and there. Rather, you've carried on to the conditioning of the last activity or the last situation that you were at. And because you have unresolved emotions and feelings that were left over, now they've carried on into this new moment. Although those two moments are completely separate, they've carried over. So falling still in between activities allows the presence, the awareness inside of you to do two things. The first thing that allows it to do is it allows it to cut off from sensory experience. Sensory experience, you have your taste, touch, your eyesight, your smell, and taste, touch, eyesight, smell, and whatever else is the fifth experience. I'm not going to cut this out. I'm just going to keep going. So you have your five senses that are present to you. And when you fall still, you actually have an opportunity to cut yourself off from the external world to bring that attention back into the internal world. Sometimes individuals can have such a level of sensory experience throughout the day that it's hard for them to bring their attention and awareness back into the inner world, because after all this stimulation of sight, after all this stimulation of taste or smell or touch, or all the different senses that we have out there, hearing, which is the other sense, I don't know how I forgot about that, but after all these sensory overloads, you can get so caught up with those things that you actually forget, literally, you forget that awareness exists. And when you become so attached to the external world, literally your mind takes over and your awareness is not in the picture anymore. So when you fall still, first off, you're cutting yourself off from that sensory experience. Secondly, any unresolved feelings or emotions that you might carried over or that you've been holding on to have an opportunity to come to the surface. Okay? And by coming to the surface, they have an opportunity to be addressed. There's this old saying that what you repress will progress. And for most individuals, because they don't acknowledge these unresolved feelings and emotions, they progress, but they progress in the subconscious. They progress without most people actually knowing that they're there. So falling still, again, cuts you off from sensory experience, and it also brings attention and awareness to things that might be unresolved. Conditioning, or in the Eastern tradition, we call karma. So when you fall still in between activities throughout the day, what you're doing is you're literally entering the present moment on a more regular basis instead of relying on that 30 minutes of meditation in the morning. So every time you enter in that present moment, what you're doing is you're seeing every situation as it truly is. You're not carrying any baggage with you, and therefore you're more alert. Athletes refer to this as the zone. All different athletes, the best of athletes have their own tradition and practice that they do maybe before the game. And when you look at these different vehicles, falling still is just one vehicle, right? When you look at these different vehicles, all these vehicles are trying to get the athlete to a place where they're separating their awareness from their mind. Those are two separate things. And when you do that, all of a sudden, the things that previously looked difficult to do, projects, performing in a particular way in an activity, all of a sudden they become not easy, but they become as they need to be. So whatever needs to be done gets done because you're in the space of the present moment and you see things completely as they are. So going back to the quote that I shared with you, if your external world is a direct reflection of your internal world, then what that means is if you bring a sense of stillness to your internal world, naturally that will progress to your external world as well too. And just as we talked about eye contact being a vehicle into the present moment, one of the things I mentioned in that video is that when you notice that your eyes are shifting or somebody else's eyes are shifting back and forth, that can be an indication to bring you back into the present moment, to notice that you're not there fully in that conversation. Along with that, if you notice that there's a sense of turmoil in your external world, if you notice that things around you are really jittery or things aren't manifesting the way that they need to, a great place to come back to is your internal world, is bringing that attention, that awareness to your internal world. Now, for some individuals, they can immediately notice that they're not in the present moment and with the snap of a finger, bring themselves back to it. But most individuals actually need a break. They need a transition. Just like for most people, going directly into a raw food diet doesn't often work. In fact, for most people, they fail at it. So what rather works is a transitional diet. So think of falling still not as a destination, but a vehicle, right? There's different vehicles out there. You got a Lamborghini, you got a hybrid, you got a Hummer, all different vehicles, not good or bad. These vehicles just take you to different destinations in different ways. And so falling still is one vehicle that's a little bit more direct than traditional meditation that you can use in your life as a way to bring you back into the present moment. So let's practice that again here. Feet flat on the floor, hands on your knees. Gently rest your eyes. And bring that attention back to your breath. If you've listened to any audiobooks of Eckhart Tolle, you often know that he says, there's two teachings. One is the words that are coming out of my mouth, and the second is the stillness or the space in between the words. So actually listen to the silence around you. Your attention's on the breath, and you're listening to the stillness. Keep coming back to your breath. And slowly and gently return. Honestly, all it takes is 30 seconds, 2 minutes. That's all I do throughout my day, whether I'm in a crowded place, whether I prefer to do it sitting, but I can also do it standing as well too. Whether I'm sitting in my car, whether I'm walking somewhere, just take an opportunity to pause, fall still. In between meetings, before I would get on a conference call, before I would have an important conversation that I need to have with somebody, before I do something that I might have some fear or conditioning to, I take an opportunity to fall still. And I notice how the fear, which is just old emotions carried over into that moment, dissipate on their own. That doesn't mean that you don't take physical action in your world, but falling still will help you take better physical action. And just lastly, as a closing thought, why the breath? Why do you bring your attention and awareness to the breath? Well, the interesting thing is when you bring your attention and awareness to the breath, you can't really think and have your attention and energy on your breath as well too. When you pay attention to your breath and you actually notice your breath coming in and exhaling out, it stops the mind. The mind has a hard time thinking and having that attention on the breath. So if you notice that while you're falling still, your thoughts go somewhere, just keep coming back to your breath. That will naturally pull your mind, pull your attention away from thoughts and back into awareness. So I leave you with this practice. It's made a huge impact in my life, and literally anytime I feel that my external world, I would like my external world to show up a particular way. There's nothing wrong with having beautiful things and having things show up in your external world, but without acknowledging that all that lasting beauty really comes from your inner world, you'll just be running around in circles trying to change your external world in ways that won't really make a difference, because at the end of it, you won't be still, you won't be a sense of joy inside, you won't be any happier than you could be if you first start with stillness and then allow that to manifest in your external world.